data that the federal government does not have. Due to the current Office of Management and Budget, OMB standards, the federal government really doesn't collect information regarding our community's business presence. I mean, just the basics of how many Arab American owned businesses there are, what sectors they're in, all of that, they don't know. And that's a product of the way that the government currently collects data. So the project, what we're doing, so in anticipation of submitting a formal request for recognition by the Minority Business Development Agency, ADC is going to be collecting information regarding the environment that Arab American owned businesses operate in. And I'm going to go into really what the MBDA is, all of that. Like Abid had mentioned, ADC has been working on this initiative for over a decade. In 2013, we submitted an application to MBDA, to formally request this recognition. At the time, the application was returned to us without any official adjudication because there was a lack of evidence surrounding what they called the nexus of economic and social discrimination, the combination of the two, one affecting the other. All these submission materials are available on ADCERI's website. But what we're doing now is we're going to reapply. And in order to ensure that we have a robust submission, we are initiating this project. So the Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA, what are they? Originally established in 1969 by an executive order, this is an agency within the Department of Commerce that solely focuses on promoting growth and competitiveness of minority-owned businesses in the U.S. It provides access to capital, contracts, market opportunities, both domestically and globally. But actually, up until the infrastructure bill that passed last year, MBDA was not a permanent agency. They were essentially operating because of these executive orders. But with the passage and enactment of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, MBDA was made a permanent agency, and their funding was nearly tripled. I mean, it went from $42 million annually to $110 million annually. What is key, and one of the reasons that ADC is focusing on MBDA, is that the MBDA doesn't factor in the size of a business when providing its services. It's as long as that business is majority owned by what they have already deemed a minority, they are eligible to take advantage of MBDA programming. Now, what is that programming? So MBDA primarily functions by supporting and investing in a national network of business centers. These centers, there's 35 right now, primarily located in areas with high concentration of minority populations and businesses. They provide business experts to help support those businesses, improving operational efficiencies, building scale, all things that help these minority businesses grow. They also have specialty centers. These specialty centers focus on specific sectors and specific specialized business development services. They include export centers, advanced manufacturing centers, federal procurement centers, and these all provide specialized services for businesses that are looking to grow or enter into those specific sectors. So it's also important to note that MBDA doesn't provide monetary grants to individual businesses, but it does provide grants to programs and initiatives that aren't already addressed through the existing business center network. Some of these programs include the Equity Multiplier Project, Enterprising Women of Color Initiative, the Entrepreneurship and Education Funds for programs for former incarcerated persons. All of these programs help minority businesses grow and expand. So I think that is an important thing to keep in mind, that having this recognition, while it won't provide specific monies to businesses, it addresses the the root issues that the root obstacles to expansion and success in the business environment. So what groups does the MBDA currently serve? So in order to be recognized by the MBDA, a minority needs to be considered socially or economically disadvantaged. In general, MBDA determines this at the group level. So right now, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, Asian Indians, and Hasidic Jews are all considered a socially or economically disadvantaged minority and are eligible to participate in programs sponsored by MBDA. Now we get to where we come in, where ADC comes in. How does a group get added? By law, in the federal code, there is a specific process that was established in 1984 to submit an application, the evidence you need to provide, and the process by which it goes through. It gets posted in the Federal Register. There's a comment period, and then a final determination is made. Since this process was established in 1984, no group has been added. No group has been successful in getting themselves added to this list of socially or economically disadvantaged minorities, which, that it's been over 30 years, but that doesn't mean that we can't be successful. And I'm very confident that if we get the response that we're looking for with this project, and we can put together and a robust enough submission that we can be successful and be the first group that successfully petitions for recognition. So the Minority Business Development Project. This is going to have two parts. It's a nationwide questionnaire and focus groups. I'm going to start off talking about the questionnaire. So what is the overall goal of this questionnaire? It's to put together a comprehensive accounting of the Arab American business presence here in the US. We're looking nationwide. We don't want to focus on the known areas. I'm thinking Southern California, the Dearborn, the New York metro area. We know that there are a lot of Arab-owned businesses there, and we're going to try to capture that information, but we don't want to focus specifically on those because it does not truly account for where we are across the country. And the results of this questionnaire are going to be a key component in creating that strong and robust submission to MBDA. What information are we collecting? And I know that this is somewhat of a sensitive topic. We don't like to really give all the information that sometimes is asked, but it's really important that we collect, where your business is, how much money did it cost, what was the capital that was required to start the business? Have you tried to expand? If you tried and you were unsuccessful, why? What if you went to a bank to get a loan? What was that most recent loan rate that you were offered? All of this, and it sounds invasive, but it is so important because this is the type of information that will absolutely create that strong and robust submission. And this is the platform we're using for the questionnaire. I want to put a fine point on the fact that all the information that we collect, because it's being run professionally by Qualtrics, this is an internationally recognized platform used by Fortune 500 companies, research institutions. Your information will be safe, and your personal identifying information will never be shared outside of ADC. We are looking to gather an aggregate amount of information. We're going to aggregate the information we collect so that no one business is going to be identified, but we will be able to show the trends across the country. So the link to the questionnaire is available all over the ADCRI website. It's adcri.org. And I really, really hope that if you are an Arab American business owner, entrepreneur, you own a business here in the States, that you fill it out, that you send it to any business owners that you know, because we really do want to make sure that we are collecting as much information as possible. Again, your individual information will always be confidential, will never be shared outside of ADC. So what's the goal? What are we looking for? We're looking for 1,000 responses. This is through talking with researchers, people that do surveys and questionnaires for a living. They have told us that 1,000 is a golden number, that this will give us a true sense of where the Arab American business community is. So how are we going to get these responses? It's a lot of responses. We're going to get them through focus groups conducted by ADC in cities across the country. So the focus groups, what are they? They are how myself and other ADC staff members are going to be able to engage with Arab American owned businesses, business owners, business associations across the country. I'm going to be traveling as much as I can, meeting with folks, meeting with business associations, to not only familiarize them with the survey and the questionnaire, but to also make sure that I'm there to answer questions, concerns. If somebody doesn't quite know how to answer a question, I want to be able to be right there to answer that question, so that I can make sure that we are getting those responses. In each city, I'm going to be conducting roundtables with business owners, entrepreneurs, associations, show them the questionnaire, be there, help them. I'm going to be going on site visits, visiting businesses in the community, meeting people where they are, talking to them, getting a sense of the larger narrative that is Arab American businesses in the United States. Meetings with business associations and chambers of commerce. These are going to be similar to the roundtables, but it's also going to allow us to build a coalition of organizations that will support us when we do make our formal submission. I'm also going to be engaging with city officials, state officials, local elected officials, to talk with them about how they can assist Arab American-owned businesses right now. So all of that is going to be happening. Here's where we're going to be visiting. It's a lot of cities. And we are, I'm going to be doing my best to give myself enough time in each city to be able to have an impact. It's going to be 34 cities. It's a lot. I'm going to, always be available, but I am going to be traveling a lot. Here's a full list of cities. It's, take a look now. This will be available online. And if you don't see your city here, listen, reach out to me, chris@adc.org. If there's a city that you think I should visit, please let me know. Because even though it's 34, let's make it 35, 36. We can, as long as I am engaging the community, I'm doing my job. So what do we need from you? Share the questionnaire with business owners and entrepreneurs in our community. I want to, I don't know where we truly are, but if there's, that one Arab American owned business in Billings, Montana, it may not make sense for me to go and fly out to Montana directly, but if you know them, that's great. That means that's just another data point that we can add to say, look, we are not just in Dearborn in Southern California, in the New York metro area. We are everywhere, and we deserve to have this access. Support and promote the project across all platforms, organizations. If there are local business associations, send them the link to this presentation. Have them get in contact with me. I would love to hear from them. And then when I'm in your city, come say hi, participate in these focus groups. It's going to be so important that we do everything that we can to get this questionnaire out and get the responses. So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions.
No
Seeing
question.
no questions, not a problem. Um, thank you all. I'm gonna now pass it over to a great resource for our community, Duphresne from the Export-Import Bank of the United States, who's gonna talk about these programs that are already available to our community, to business owners and entrepreneurs that are looking to get into a new sector. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and I congratulate you on your effort to try to get this done. It's quite a road ahead, a lot of traveling, a lot of miles, but nevertheless, I think it's worth it. My name is Duphresne. I'm a business development specialist here at EXIM, the U.S. Export-Import Bank. And to all of you, I said, Ramadan Mubarak. I am fasting as well currently, just to pay respect. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And let me know if you can see my screen, Chris. Okay. All right. So EXIM Bank, or EXIM, the U.S. Export-Import Bank. We are not a private bank. We're a federal government agency. It's kind of like a misnomer. You hear the word bank, you might think, okay, you guys are a private bank. No, we are actually a federal government agency. And I'll go over some information as to how you can utilize the resources that are available to you. And I work primarily in the minority-owned business and outreach division, and I'll go over as to who we are. But first, for our mission for EXIM, it's quite simple. That is to maintain and create U.S. jobs by facilitating the export of U.S. products and services. We don't compete against the private sector, but we try to fill in the gaps that exist when it comes to financing. And we also try to level the playing field for U.S. companies that are looking to go global and to compete in the international world. And we're also known as the official export credit agency of the United States. And I'll explain why that's a little important later on. And you can also see on my screen about 87% of transactions in the fiscal year 2021 went towards small businesses. And for EXIM, we take equity, diversity, and inclusion very seriously, and that is our priorities. We serve a lot of different communities, especially those in the underserved businesses who are in the United States, and we try to include everybody and try to go everywhere to let people know, hey, here are some resources that you can utilize to help your company export, because we are primarily focused on exporting, even though the word import is in the name of our agency, but it's typically for other buyers in different countries that are importing US-made products and services. And for the minority-owned business outreach division, we again focus a lot on participating in events like this ones, roundtables, webinars, seminars, trade missions, to try to target different groups, just so we can educate them about EXIM and how we can assist their businesses. And because the international world is very, it's a path for a lot of entrepreneurs and enterprises to expand and finding customers. And I'll go over why that's beneficial, right? And for us, we had last year participated in over 100 events. We're on target to surpass that this year. Over $300 million were geared towards minority-owned businesses in the fiscal year of 2021. And about 20% of EXIM support went towards small businesses. Now, just because you're a minority-owned business doesn't mean you are a small business. There are large corporations that are minority-owned. And our target audience include veteran business owners with disabilities, Native Americans, rural, LGBTQIA, and businesses in underserved businesses. And that include women-owned businesses, Black, Asian, Hispanic, and so forth. And especially, I'll explain, and Chris mentioned MBDA. Now go into a little bit our relationship with them and why that's important to be able to utilize the services that they provide. But first, if you're a business owner in the audience and you're listening to my voice, are you currently exporting? If not, I would like to hear, provide my contact information, of course, but if you're in the audience, I'd like to hear, if you are not exporting, what are some of the barriers that you might be facing right now that's preventing that from happening? But in the meantime, if you do export, what have you been finding to be some benefits to you? At the end of the day, that allows you to access more consumers and businesses. And you're also allowed to diversify your company's opportunities, because there are a lot of other countries that exist outside of the United States. And if you're a minority, that means within your circle, you might know people that are from different countries, or even yourself, family members, or your roots, your own country. The product that you have in the US or the service that can be utilized in those countries as well. It's a matter of finding the buyers, getting the financing, which is where EXIM would come in. That would allow you to get those customers. Because at the end of the day, yes, the United States has the number one world's economy, but number two exists, number three, number four, number five, and so forth. And 95% of consumers exist outside of the US. So that means there's a lot of opportunity that your company can, a lot of consumers to go after, even if there's a saturated market in the US. Believe it or not, just about 1% of companies are actually exporting. And again, I asked the question, if you're not, what's the reason? And then speaking with a lot of companies, over the past year, even before that, just a little bit about my background. I actually ran a company in Haiti. My background is international business, and I live in Senegal for a couple of years, and I work in Australia as well, and live in France. And coming back in the US, trying to get companies, hey, you should take your product outside. You should try to find some consumers. A lot of them are afraid of the risk that's involved, and also the information sometimes can be somewhat overwhelming. But again, I assure you, you can do it. This is what the Minority Women-Owned Business Division exists for, or MWOB, and other agencies as well, and organizations that are assisting businesses. But with that said, we try to level the playing field. And I mentioned at the onset, we are known as the official export credit agency of the US, which means there are other ones that exist as well in different countries. So if you're in France, Germany, and so on, they have a similar agency that provides similar services and sort of a similar role. And when you are competing, say, for example, you have a contract from Japan, and there are two companies, one from France and one from the US. The one in France has the support of France, of the government from that country, whereas the one in the US does not. Try to think as to who would most likely be able to get that contract, or who has had the better leverage. Well, probably the one in France, because they have the support of their government. And again, this is what we try to do by supporting US companies to level the playing field. And so when you are competing for those contracts, you come out on top. And we also minimize the risk. We recognize that in every business venture, there are always risks involved. And EXIM is our goal is to minimize that so you can get those contracts, you can win those opportunities and allow your products and services in many, many other places. We don't compete with the private sector when it comes to financing. We just fulfill the gaps that exist. And with our support, we supplement the commercial financing for US businesses. And you might be asking, okay, how do we do that? Well, there are two core programs within EXIM. one is the working capital guarantee. Now, I misspoke. It's two. Actually, there's a third one that's just launched early last week. So I'll go over that slightly, but I just kind of, just got approved for that one. But for the time being, I'll just go over for the two. First one is the working capital loan guarantee. And as you can see, some of the benefits for that allows you to pay for materials, equipment, supplies, and other overhead that you might have. We provide a 90% guarantee to lenders. So it's not us per se as the bank providing the loan, but rather we work with the private sector. We provide the guarantee to them, kind of like a risk mitigator, if you will. And that will allow them to provide you the loan. The rates are usually more attractive than conventional financing. So if you look at this graph, it shows you just the breakdown in 4 little steps. One, you want to export your products and services, but you need financing to export your accounts receivables that are going to be shipped outside of the US. You go to your bank, whoever that company has a private account with, you apply for a loan to get that order done. But your lender won't approve it because it's going outside of the US, it's export. And this is where EXIM would come in, kind of like the middleman, say, hey, we have vetted quite a few banks through the delegated authority. They would process your claim or your loan under guidelines provided by EXIM. And thus, you would get the financing you need to get that order to the particular buyer that have sent you the purchasing order. So that's kind of like in a nutshell as to how the working capital guarantee work. Once you ship that product, you might need some protection, right? And that's where the export credit insurance would come in, provides you risk protection, protects you in case of any non-payments due to commercial and political risk. So take, for example, try to imagine if you had sent over some products early February, for example, in Ukraine. Well, a war broke out. And you ask the question, well, what are those businesses? What would you have done in that particular situation? You didn't have any protection. And this is where, again, the export credit insurance would allow you to trade in case any of those things happen. It's not just Ukraine. There have been, coup in Myanmar and other political issues and commercial risks as well that have occurred in different countries. But it's also a sales tool that you can use if you are offering terms. So using that same example in the Ukraine, you had given your buyer 30 days or 60 days to pay you. That's very attractive to a lot of companies outside of the US, where you can negotiate the contract. A lot of them would want to have a 30 days or 60-day time period for them to provide payments. With the export credit insurance, you're able to negotiate that. You can provide up to 180 days, and some products may qualify for a 360-day term. And having the insurance also allows you to get more financing and insuring your receivables as well. That allows you to increase your borrowing base by assigning the policy proceeds to a lender. So in those two ways, you can definitely get a lot of resources to be able to win contracts outside of the US. And again, just a little breakdown as to the 5 steps if you were to utilize the export credit insurance and how that would work. You have an international buyer and you have the policy with us. Then you offer them term. And if they accept it, then you ship the product and invoice the buyer. You report the shipment to EXIM, and then there's a premium that you would need to pay. There's ways to mitigate that. I'll go over that information just a little bit. And then the buyer pays you. If they fail to do so, this is where the policy would come in to cover you up to 95% of that account's receivables. So this way you are not losing out rather than lose the whole thing. EXIM will provide you a 95% guarantee. We support a lot of industries, as you can see on here: manufacturing, medical equipment, mining, and yes, services. And I mentioned that quite a few times. A lot of companies think just because they have a service, they can't export that. Well, try to think if you're like a virtual assistant or even a translator. the king of Saudi Arabia or some other country is doing some sort of conference. There was a conference in Dubai, or there was trade missions, and you providing that somewhere else, you can export that. That's export. It's an international transaction, and EXIM can support you as well. Oil, agribusiness, and so on. If your industry is not on here, that doesn't mean we don't support you. It's just, this is not an exhaustive list, and we can definitely provide that support later. And this is just a little case study of one of the businesses that have utilized our policies, and they are exporting to Europe, Asia, and Australia. It's a woman-owned small business, and they started, as a regular family who was creating headphones that for music, audiobooks, and so on. And eventually they came across EXIM. And once they did that, they were able to grow their international sales about 15% per year, and they're still utilizing the policy. So this is just to give you an example. There are a lot more companies. I've interviewed a few of them. They've participated in our events as well. But the question is, that can be you as well. So if you're not exporting, just be rest assured that there are resources that you can use to export. Keep in mind, though, there are always some restrictions, and EXIM is no exception. The country limitation schedule is something that we have to abide by. Even though we're open in over 180 countries, we still had to take into account certain risks. When there is a war broke out, the question is, should we remain open in that particular country, or should we try to mitigate that? So some might be able to open for the public and not the private sector. So that's something that we had to look at every single day whenever we speak with businesses, to let them know, hey, in that country, we are open, there are no restrictions, or in that particular country, we might be open, but here are some limitations that we might have. And also, no military or defense-related products. That we don't support that, unfortunately, unless it is for civilian use. And the products must be shipped from a U.S. port, and there's a content policy, meaning that for EXIM to provide support, at least 51%, 50.x, but 51% is an easier number to work with. That must be from the US side in terms of dollars. So if you are producing, say, I don't know, this little chopstick lip balm, it costs $1 to make, is 51 cents coming from the US side in terms of materials or labor. So in order for us to fully support you, so that's definitely a requirement from us. And now you ask the question, okay, after listening to all those information, do you think that you can start exporting? Maybe, maybe not. Nevertheless, know that you can get counseling and training. There are other places that provide services. MBDA is one of them. I'll go over that information shortly. And you can find buyers outside of the US and get funding from EXIM. You have the insurance brokers. Usually when you are applying for a policy, we'll assign you a broker that provides a lot of guidance free of charge. You don't pay them, and they help you through the application. We also have the original export promotion program. It's managed by my colleague, Eric Stevens, where you have different agencies as well as organizations like the Small Business Development Centers that's funded by the Small Business Administration, and also MBDA. Some MBDA centers are on that list that helps businesses to get started or do some market research. Maybe they're missing some documentations or some connections as well. So that's where the rep members will come in. If you're not 100% ready to export, you might need some basic assistance. They are there to help your company get all the resources, all your paperwork in order to help you get those particular contracts. And now that just to, I mentioned before, I'm part of the MWOB team, and we also connect with a lot of those rep members for different events. I host an event every second and fourth Fridays of the month, and Chris mentioned the different type of MBDA offices that exist, which is the export centers. I refer a lot of businesses there when they're not ready, but also we're having a new series for U.S. Manufacturers, and we'll have one of the MBDA advanced manufacturing centers and representatives on there as well, just to show you the synergy that exists between our agencies. And then we have the delegated lenders, that's for the working capital. You can go on that website, exim.gov/resources/delegated authority lenders, and that would allow you to see some of the banks. We have specific individuals that you would need to connect with and ask them some questions. And if you're ready to export, they'll submit the application on your behalf. And here are some social media accounts that we have. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we have our own blogs at grow.exim.gov/blog. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. So definitely connect with us and we'll be able to assist you. I'm available. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can reach me at edens.dufresne@exim.gov. That's edens.duphresne@exim.gov. Or you can reach me on my cell phone at 202-725-4223. So that's pretty much it for me. I mean, there are a lot more which I can go into, but I think this is sufficient just to give you a basic understanding as to who EXIM is, the MWOB team, the Minority-Owned Business Division, and how we assist businesses. We do a lot of one-on-one consultations, no charges, it's free, everything that we do. And we provide you kind of guidance for the resources that are available for businesses like yours in order to help you to expand and getting those contracts outside of the United States. That's pretty much for me. So Chris, I'll turn over to you if there are any other questions and how we can connect and help your businesses further.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that was super informative. I knew most of that stuff and I still learned something. So I appreciated that. I wanted to make one thing clear. So when we talk about underserved business communities, EXIM recognizes Arab Americans as one of those underserved business communities, correct?
I'm sorry?
That EXIM recognizes Arab Americans as one of those underserved business communities that the MWOB recognizes.
Yeah, so we serve, I mean, there are a lot of different groups, especially small businesses, underserved business community. That includes, I think I showed you the little slide,
Yes.
women-owned, Black, Asian, Hispanic, and so on. So yes, so we do work with a lot of different categories. And as long as, and I know you were working on the MBDA, so MBDA is
Yes.
different than us. We have our own charters.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to make that clear for, folks tuning in now who might tune in later that, we're talking about a programming that should you as a business owner want to expand into exporting, that you can access now. As we continue to work for a full submission to MBDA, that doesn't prevent a business from reaching out to you now to start those consultations to talk through what they can access through EXIM.
No, definitely not. You can, connect with me and I'll be glad to sit down with you. In terms of some of the requirements to get the policies with us, just as long as the business has been in operation for the export credit interest for at least a year. Usually for financing, you need at least 3 years of, revenues, financials, profit and loss statement, balance sheet, things along those lines to help us assess whether or not you can get the financing. If you're a purchasing owner, that'd be great as well. But yeah, I'm available. Connect with me and I'll be glad to assist.
It's amazing. Thank you. Abid, do we have any questions coming in either from the chat or from other places?
Yes, we do. Thank you both for that information. Adams, we had a couple questions that came in for you. One, what sectors besides defense do not qualify to work with the EXIM bank? And two, is there a, you touched on it on your last comment about the requirements. Is there a revenue requirement or numbers that they have to show to qualify in working with you?
So for the first question as to any other sectors that we don't approve of, I would say anything that's not cleared by the federal government, for example. So we can't support that. And the second question, there is no minimum per se. I mean, like I said, would like to see, because we do have, for the entrance, we do have like small transactions. And as I guess, most of the transactions that we have, they're geared towards small businesses. But nevertheless, there's no small revenue. We'd like to see you have, large, but there's no minimum per se. That we do have a saying, there's no deal that's too small for EXIM. But when it comes to the financing, we do have to take into account some of the lenders. They have their own requirements. So a lot of times they usually start at, there are banks that do the 100, 200,000, 500,000 when you have, especially when you have a policy with EXIM. And then you have those that start at kind of million plus for larger transactions. So we try to meet the business where you're at and try to see what exactly you're trying to export.
Good. And then Chris, we had a question come in for you. Maybe you could touch on the difference between SBA, MBDA, and the services they offer.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question. So SBA, the Small Business Administration, they, unlike MBDA, focus solely on small businesses. SBA does have a minority loan program. I believe it's the 8A program. And they have a similar list of recognized socially or economically disadvantaged minorities. However, there is the primary difference, and one of the reasons that ADC is focusing on MBDA is that SBA's list doesn't have that process laid out in the federal code to add a group to that list. It's at least my understanding that in order to add Arab Americans to the list of designated minorities by the Small Business Administration, we would have to have legislation passed to add us to that list. Whereas with MBDA, we can put together this very persuasive submission, and we can get recognized without having to have a whole new law passed. I think that in addition to that, the fact that there is an actual process for us to go through, putting together this submission doesn't stop with MBDA. Once we make our submission, knock on all wood that we're successful, I'm confident in our ability to put together that persuasive, robust, strong submission. We can take that and go to other federal agencies that don't currently recognize Arab Americans. This is going to be a submission that focuses on the economics and the business community, but it's also going to include factors like health disparities, the fact that we don't really have a true sense of health issues that affect specifically our community versus the larger quote unquote white Caucasian community. And so it's important to recognize that, while MBDA doesn't have a specific loan program for the businesses that it serves, having access to these to the business centers, having access to programs that will provide capital, provide business advice, sector specific advice, is really invaluable. So that's a great question.
Great. And one more question for the EXIM. One comment came in, thank you for the introduction to the EXIM Bank. It's definitely, a few folks are Really thank you for taking your time, and this is good information that was put out there. Are there any local offices? Are there, or is everything based in DC, or does EXIM have representatives in different states or cities?
Sure. So we do have regional offices all around the country. So there are, so it depends on your location. Some offices cover different states. So we have about 12 regional offices around the country that try to cover the entirety of the United States. So obviously some people have different hats, but if you can connect with me and see where you're located, I can refer you to the proper person. But yes, there are regional offices all around the country. I know there are one in Florida and in Georgia and New York, a couple of them, New York, California. So I'm just doing on my head, but we also have a website that have the different regions as well that can have that. So I'll send that over to Chris, and that allows you. But I think the best thing to do probably just connect with me, and then I'll refer you to the proper person.
Good. All right. I'm trying to see here if we have any questions from folks that are online. We don't have anything. I think we're going to wrap up a little early. Let you guys go on your day. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you two for closing remarks or anything you want to add. And then again, appreciate you taking the time to join us. This information about the EXIM Bank is very valuable, and I think one of many conversations we'll have moving forward. So, I'm going to go off screen, but thank you for that. And Chris, I'll turn it off, turn it over to you to close us out.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to, repeat Abid. Adams, this was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate EXIM being so communicative with us, making sure that we know that the services and the programs that you guys provide, it's incredibly helpful. And I'll be sure I'm going to send out an email after we close here, kind of, giving the folks that have registered that want to, learn more information about the project, but I'm also going to include some of the information that you provided as well, and your contact information, at least your email, so that folks can reach out if they have any follow-up questions. Kind of wrapping up, I thank you all for joining. Thank you if you're watching this later on. I appreciate you taking the time to watch our presentations. Couple things that are coming up. I'm going to be traveling for that first focus group to New York and New Jersey on May 16th. Be there for the week, so May 16th to the 19th. And so, please reach out if you want to meet, you want to catch up, you want to participate. Please do not hesitate to reach out. The email would be Chris, CHRIS @adc.org. One other thing, in June, on June 18th, ADC is having our national convention. The first one in 2 years. We're super excited for everyone to come in. We're putting together a great program. You can find more information about the convention, where to register, all that at adc.org. And information about the Minority Business Development Project and the link to the questionnaires can be found at adcri.org. So thank you all for joining. Eden, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, just want to say thank you for having me on, and hopefully I'm able to connect with some of those business owners out there and let them know about the resources that are available to them, and also how EXIM and the MWOB team can assist them in their adventures. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.